Good evening and welcome back to blackdoctor.org. I am your host, Dr. Renee. And if you haven't been with us for the last few weeks, October is Allergy Appreciation Month. So we have been talking about specifically food allergies because those are the most severe usually, all month long. So if you haven't seen, you can go back and watch the other episodes. But tonight is going to be great. I need you guys to do me one favor. I need you to share share this on Facebook, share this on YouTube, share this on LinkedIn, share, because I guarantee if you don't know somebody with food allergies, somebody you know knows somebody with food allergies. And tonight we have a really, really amazing couple who are doing amazing work in this space. And from the last few weeks, if you haven't been watching, we have learned, I think, what we already knew. Unfortunately, the Black community is left out of the conversation when it comes to food allergies. For some reason, they never think about Black people having food allergies, but hello, we do. I'm one of them. So that is why it is so amazing the work that this couple has done, because they're Black and they are speaking to our community and putting a light on the fact that we actually do have these problems as well. Also, I wrote a book, you guys, Mommy, I Can't Breathe. And you can go to mommyican'tbreathe.com and you can buy my book, or you can look it up on Google and buy it from any of the book retailers, Amazon, Google Books, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, et cetera, et cetera. But my book is The Modern Guide to Navigate Allergies and Asthma. So I tell you a whole lot about my story, and then I give you a lot of great information about treatments and diagnosing asthma and all of that great stuff. And then I even give you some of the places that I eat, because I do eat out. So I can tell you some of the places that I find safe to eat. But I will bring on my guests, you guys. Here we go. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
So we have Thomas and Dina Silvera. And so, Thomas, please introduce your lovely wife. And then, Dina, you can introduce Thomas.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is my lovely wife, Gina Hawthorne Silvera. I'd say we are a power couple together. Um, we have two boys, Sebastian, and one in our heart, Elijah Alavi. We've come a long way from the very beginning, since day one of us meeting and until now, us basically taking tragedy to triumph, and the work that we're doing and the fight of creating lasting and impactful change.
It's 6 o'clock.
Creating lasting and impactful change in honor of our son Elijah Alavi, who had passed away on November 3rd of 2017. And from that point, my wife and I, even in our grief, we're still pushing forward. And I will hand this over to Dina, and and you can share with everyone.
Hello, my name is Dina Hawthorne Silvera. Thomas Silvera, my lovely husband. He took this on. It's like our baby, and it's growing, and so proud of the work that he continues to do from the very beginning. I even had to remind him to stop and take care of himself and regroup, because that's also needed and healthy. We are no good to anyone if we can't take care of ourselves, right? He also has asthma and food allergies too. So, I'm like, I don't want you to exacerbate and like work yourself up. But he's been such a great leader here at the Elijah Alavi Foundation. And we work really well together, great partners. Wouldn't ask for a better team.
Awesome. So you guys, I have to tell you how I met them. I did a blog post about somebody who had food allergies. Their son had no idea who they were. I just saw it on the news and was like, oh my God. And so I did a blog post, and I think I must have shared that I did the blog post on my Instagram, because Dina sent me a DM and I'm like, who is this person? I go, oh my God, it's the mother. And I told my sister, I was like, oh my God, she saw my blog post. Yeah. And so that is how I ended up kind of connecting with them, is because she sent me that message. And I was like, oh, And I said, well, and so I knew I was doing this. I said, let me see if they would come and talk about it, because I think it's so important for people to understand how severe food allergies can be. Because a lot of people, and I know you've experienced this, where they're like, oh, it's no big deal, their food is sitting right next to, it's no big deal. No, but it is a big deal. And, people don't realize, hives is one thing. And there is somebody in the audience that said that their child has chronic hives. And I really do agree that you might want to see an allergist. I'm not sure that your doctor you're seeing is an allergist, and they could possibly grow out of those hives, just like I grew out of some of my food allergies. But hives is one thing. Like I told people if it was just hives for some of the foods, I might eat them, but it's not hives.
Right.
And because unfortunately I have experienced an allergic reaction, and it's never gotten so bad. I've never had to epi I've never had to do that, thank God. But it has gotten bad enough where another person, if it happened to them, they probably wouldn't have went to the ER. But because of my medical background, I was like, I'll be okay. Let me take some Benadryl. But it literally 2 seconds, a crumb, and my throat started closing. I couldn't swallow. Spit was just coming out my mouth. And I'm like, oh, shoot, something I ate tonight, So people need to understand it can happen like this. And it can happen with the smallest amount of food. Like literally, there's a story in my book. I ate a crumb of a muffin when I was in college in the dorm cafeteria. And literally 2 seconds after it passed my tongue, I was like, oh no. I left my tray right there, went to my room, because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to stop breathing in a minute. Like I had to hurry up and do something. So I want you to, either one of you, whoever, please tell the story what happened to your son.
Should I?
Yeah, you can say it.
All right. So for those of you who don't know the story behind my wife and I and our son Elijah Alavi, so on November 3rd, 2017, I go this kind of like take a couple days back, us getting him ready for daycare, him enjoying himself as a young little boy, was full of energy. But on November 3rd, I remember receiving a phone call while I'm a certified surgical technologist, and I was in the middle of assisting a surgery, and my phone was just ringing off the walls. And when I finally had the break, and I get that phone call saying, "Hey, got to get to the hospital." And November 3rd, he, by the time I got to where I had to be, it was already too late. And that man, it had changed. Sorry, it had changed our lives. Not just mine or my wife or my son Sebastian. Everyone who has been involved with us, it has changed their life tremendously. And and even in, like I said, we're still in our grief. Everyone is still grieving to this day. Even people that we don't know who have reached out, they grieve with us. And it's sad to hear that, because, it's not their pain, but they feel it.
Right. That was me. That's why I posted it, because I was like, oh my God. Because first of all, the deaths that I had heard of with food allergies, I will say most of them were white. So when I saw, I was like, oh my God, Alicia, you see this cute little boy? My sister lived in Jersey too. So, and plus my family, we're all West Indian. My family lives in New York as well. So I connected and was like, oh my God.
Yeah. So, it was mentioned to us that he was fed a food that contained an allergen, even with us documenting everything that is needed in order to provide the center with the proper documentation. You can't bring your child to school without having that allergy information, that medical information, the EpiPen, the nebulizer. Everything needs to be there before your child enters the center. That's what a parent does. A diligent parent will make sure they cross their T's and dot their I's and put these in place. 504s, IEP. My wife is a beast when it comes to that. When you have all that information in place and you have the trust of the child care center that tells you, yes, we do understand this. Yes, we do this. Yes, we do that. It gives you peace of mind. But when the system fails you on that, how do you continue to trust? So that's why my wife and I, she was amazing when it came to looking into policies and legislations and, finding that how isn't there a law that protects childcare? And we did our research. We worked with organizations to kind of like put this legislation together. And it wasn't until like 2018 they passed it in the Senate, but it didn't have the language that she wanted, that we wanted. So we worked closely with Senator Brian Benjamin at the time, who is now Lieutenant Governor of New York, and Assemblyman Al Taylor. We literally just rewrote that whole section. My wife, she's great when it comes to English grammar and so forth. And then working with their people in terms of creating a law language that the legislators need to understand, because how we put it and how legislation is read is totally different. So
Right.
once we got that and it started moving and getting passed unanimously through these systems, we knew that Elijah's life he did not die in vain. So we kept pushing forward and kept being proactive about everything. And we grassrooted this whole entire thing. We didn't just give it to them and just wait and see, because it doesn't work that way.
Mm-mm.
If you want to see results, you have to be about it while you're
You
talking
have to
about
stay in their faces.
it. Exactly. And we did that.
And we did that while grieving.
That's crazy. Like, and please, okay, what's your background, Dina? Because I'm like, first of all, I tell everybody politics is not my conversation. So I'm like, oh my God, how amazing.
Yeah,
my background is not in politics either. It's just when I was in school, I like to learn a bunch of things. And
Okay.
so I focused more on music, fashion, and business. But I remember when I was younger in like junior high school, I was going to be a lawyer. So I from junior high school to like maybe ninth grade, I was really focused in like civil and criminal law. And by the time I went to college, I still dabbled in it a little bit. And then I realized if you're going to be a good lawyer, you have to try a lot of cases, even the ones you don't want. And
Right.
I just said, can't do that. Even though I knew there were different types of lawyers, like music lawyer, people who deal
Yeah.
with music and but corporate. No, I really wanted to deal with like the defendant and plaintiff and like
Right.
really in the crux of like criminal law, so that lends its hands with politics, a little bit in terms of like the language being very, very specific. And I like to research. I'm a big researcher. I got my master's degree in special education. So they
Okay.
call it the science of education. And, as a mandated reporter for schools where there are kids who, can speak to you and engage with you, I'm a big person on understanding what I can do legally.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very important. I read this book and it made me love history. And because of that, I started to always pay attention to law and how things are created, because it determines what you can and cannot do, essentially.
Exactly.
And I knew that when this happened, I knew I wanted to do something. I knew that something had to be done. And I knew that the country that I lived in wasn't going to listen to me unless legally they should, if that makes sense.
Very true. No, that makes perfect sense.
So I got back into that mind mode of research, before I start shouting and yelling. How will they care if I'm not shouting and yelling about something that aligns with the laws that they have in place?
Right.
So to my actual surprise, because I think maybe this is the first time I'm talking about this, initially when I started this process, when I started to look into things, I didn't look into it thinking one did not exist. I wanted to find the language so that I can defend what happened, so I can get some justification, like some justice
Yes.
behind everything that happened to my family. We were already going to find ways to work with our community to bring awareness to food allergies when our children, when my son was alive. Anyway, because both of our children have food allergies, myself and Thomas included. So I was going to do this anyway. So when I was looking into the law, it was specifically to see how I can fight for justice for my son and for anyone going further. I was surprised that there was none. That's how, then of course it developed this fury inside me, like, as an educator and a mandated reporter, I have to take all these certifications, jump through all these hoops to make sure that, our students are protected, and not just their minds, but their bodies. We take on so much responsibilities as educators in that building. And to know that the most vulnerable babies,
Right.
the language is so loose.
Correct.
There's no real mandates for anything. I was just like, how is that even possible? Babies can't talk to you. Like, I don't care what anybody says.
Right.
A 3-year-old is not responsible for themselves. I don't care if a 3-year-old points to their throat. You, the adult in the room, have to be able to understand what's happening. You can't leave the responsibility up to a 3-year-old to identify if they are going through distress. That's
Right.
This is ridiculous to me.
Yeah,
If we're not expecting older children to do that, then why would we put that level of responsibility on toddlers and babies?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, who's responsible? And I was reading this case that happened, I don't remember the state, where a baby passed away in a beanbag. And because of the law and the way the law was written, they got off. Oh, yeah, nothing happened. And it angered me. And I said, this is why it's important to know laws.
Right.
This is why it's important to know the policies and the regulations and things that are on the books, so you know how to fight for yourself in your community. So that's really what started all that. Like,
so what happened with the daycare?
So we can but talk so much about in terms of that based on litigation.
Okay.
The center is closed down. You can actually Google it. The center is closed down, so it no longer exists in that area. But with the work that we have been doing with the legislation, New York has taken like full precedence of how to push this legislation and how to make it work. We had a press conference with Lieutenant Governor Brian Benjamin, with the Commissioner of Office of Children and Family Services, Sheila Poole, and other elected officials that were there to basically, hey, Elijah's Law is finally in full effect. We passed a law in 2019, signed by Cuomo in 2019 of September, is that due to the pandemic, we had that halt with the legislations.
Yes.
We had this done last year, but they really pushed the needle with that and made sure that they got everything done the way it should be. And making sure that every single childcare center in New York State, not just randomly, it's every New York State childcare has to be in compliance with the regulations. The new regulations have to do the training. I posted recently that over 23,000 people have already taken that. That's just the beginning.
Right.
And it's emotional to see that, because I'm like, it hurts at the same time, because I'm like, this is not where my wife and I, my family, or anyone should be in. Mm-hmm. And this is what we shouldn't be doing. But it's something like, I didn't choose this path or this purpose. Now this path has been chosen for me, and I have to lead that. And I was like, about my son Elijah, of the life that he would have led, and think about the path that we're taking, that I'm taking, that this is his path. So like, everything that I'm doing, like I'm currently about to finish grad school in public health. So I changed the trajectory of my career to go into public health.
Wow.
To focus on the underserved communities, the Black and Brown, Hispanics, especially that the health disparities are focused on asthma and food allergies, that these resources are not provided to these communities. And that's why we started the Elijah Alavi Foundation, because we know that the underserved communities are not given this type of privilege. Even those, I remember watching a video that a woman had said, she's like, I know that I have the funds to provide this type of service for my son, but there are other kids that are struggling with asthma and food allergies that can't, in the underserved community. And she mentioned, she's like, I'm privileged, but these children are not. And it was so great to see that, because it was a Caucasian woman. And it's a predominantly, like the food allergy community is predominantly Caucasian. And we don't hear a lot from the African-American or Hispanic community, because this is not something that we see as familiarity, to be familiar.
But I think that honestly, it's the disparities. So therefore, what happens is we're not diagnosed.
Correct.
So there are many of us that have allergies, but if you weren't, you didn't get to go to the doctor the way that you should, and you didn't get to the doctor, or you weren't going to a doctor, you were going to the clinic, and it wasn't even necessarily a doctor you were seeing, or you didn't see the same person every time. All those things play into it.
Yeah, and culture too.
What'd you say?
Culture. I
Yeah,
think a lot of us, I say all of us may be Black and other different ethnic groups and races and ethnicities and such, but our cultures plays a huge part in how we navigate our health and access it as well. And I remember, for years growing up, I would go to the doctor, but I didn't know that there was a thing called an allergist.
Right. And that,
You know what I mean?
you'd be amazed how many people have asthma who don't know that.
Right.
And don't know that that's probably besides, and also a pulmonologist. And I talk about that in my book as well. Pulmonologists and allergists, if you have asthma, those are the two physicians you want to see. And I am a doctor, and I tell you, my internal medicine friends are amazing, but they don't have to go to the extra, conferences to hear about all the latest and greatest. And my mom was a respiratory therapist, so she went to those conferences, even though she wasn't a doctor. She went to those conferences because of her job. So she knew that information. Plus, I had an allergist.
Yeah. And so, I don't think we, as a community, understand that there's a difference. Like, you're going to your pediatrician, you're going to your primary care doctor. There are doctors who specializes in certain things. I did not know. I wasn't diagnosed with asthma until I was in my 30s. But for years when I was younger, I knew I had to adjust my body, right? Even with food allergies too. It was just, you would hear people say, don't eat that. She can't have that. They don't explain why. And even if you try to explain, something's happening with my throat, or I feel itchy, then just don't eat it, right? We don't know that this thing can get worse. We don't know that there's a doctor that you can specifically see. And I remember going to the doctor when I was younger and describing how I would feel when I eat certain foods. And they're like, well, just avoid it. And I'm serious. So if you're going to the doctor with your parents and you have a doctor that just says, well, just avoid foods that makes you feel like that, they don't tell you to go to an allergist. You know what? Let me refer you to an allergist. That doesn't happen. And I will even go further and say, when I had my son, Sebastian, it took, I think it was, I was speaking to my gynecologist about my son, and she was the one that told me to take him to an allergist.
Wow.
And then because she told me that, when I went to his pediatrician, I said, I told her, I was talking to my gyno, talking about my son, and, because when he was a baby, he was milk sensitive. We had to put him on Nutramigen. I didn't even know that was a thing, and so the doctor was like, okay. She took some of his blood. He was still little. And I remember being at my grandmother's house. And that day, I wanted to introduce him to peanut butter. That very day, I'll never forget, because I got the call as I'm in the kitchen with my grandmother. My son's in the living room. And I pick up the phone, and I'm telling my grandmother, I want to, I think I was going to put on a soft carrot or something to introduce it to him. Because in my mind, I was like, I know there are kids with food allergies. With peanut allergies. I've been hearing about it. And I'm like, well, I don't want my son to have a peanut allergy. So I get the call, and they're like, did you ever give your child peanuts? And I was just like, no, don't. And I was just like, why? Oh, he cannot have peanuts. He is extremely allergic. Now, I never gave him peanuts. So I was like, I don't even know where they're getting this information from. So now I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take my son to an allergist. Mind you, the pediatrician doesn't tell me to take him to an allergist. They just tell me he just can't have peanuts. Don't give it to him. I take him to an allergist, and then there's a list of things he really can't have. And on that list is casein. I think it's casein.
Casein, yes.
Yeah, casein. Now, I didn't know that casein was milk.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I really didn't. So I just see this ingredient on there. Fast forward, I have my son, Eli. I go to the store. I buy vegan cheese, and it has casein in it. Needless to say, they both ended up in the hospital. And I'm scratching my head for the life of me. I can't figure out why. Thomas, he reads the ingredients. He's like, there's casein in it. And I was like, okay. And he's like, that's milk. What? Like, I didn't know.
There's a whole like dictionary, I swear, you need to learn when it comes to food
At this
allergies,
point,
because they will put all sorts of things and you don't know that actually is from this and that's from
Well,
this.
they use a Latin term for certain words. Like, for me, it's almonds. And when they use a Latin term instead of almonds, I don't know the Latin term for almonds. So I put it on my hair and my scalp is on fire and I'm breaking out. I'm like, why?
Oh, no.
And so it's stuff like that this constant education is needed
And that's why
in our space when it comes to understanding, like, this is why we need to explain to our community and talk to the people and say, hey, listen, going to your primary care physician is nice. Going to the pediatrician is great. However, if your pediatrician says to you, have your child avoid certain foods, or it's not asthma, it's respiratory, whatever, take them to a specialist, because that's what they specialize in and they can help you. Because had I not taken my son to an allergist, I would have probably continued to give him vegan foods. They would continue to have reactions. And I'm over here scratching my head trying to figure out what's going on. Not fully getting it, not realizing dairy, there's an umbrella. Dairy is an umbrella term. And then under dairy, there's a whole list of terms. Whey, all these other things that you just don't realize is milk. I can't tell you. There are people that say things like, well, you're lactose intolerant. So, no, if you can't have milk, then you can have lactate milk. No, you can't.
No.
You can't do that.
Lactose intolerant and milk allergy are two totally different
things.
Yeah,
and so, like, it's this constant education in our community that really needs to happen around the way that we were raised and things that we were taught and how to talk about our health, and that it's okay. Like, it's okay to have food allergies. Now we need to know how to live with it in a healthy way.
Right.
And yes, they're innovative and new things coming down the pipe, but until we see those changes, we have to know how we can live healthy lives with this condition. Because yes, you have the mild and you have the extreme, and the extreme is you die. And to know that you can die from a carrot, a cucumber, a tomato, spinach, eggs, any food. Like, you tell people, like, let's enjoy food, and then someone eat a strawberry, and that you're like, well, injured now. Like,
yeah.
I try to
explain that.
I try to like educate everyone. It's like, especially in the childcare system, you have parents that was like, that will have their children only send them to school with a Benadryl, or his hives are always the same. But I'm always stressing, every reaction is not going to be the same reaction. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have either a mild reaction, you're going to have and the next reaction could be an anaphylactic. Because your son had these three reactions not simultaneously, but similar, all times of ingesting this allergen, that doesn't mean that fourth time is going to be the same. It can be different. And I'm always stressing that allergies is not just hives on the skin. It affects multiple body systems. It can be internal, it's affecting the gastro, affecting the respiratory, the cardiovascular. There's so many factors that go into it, especially you're dealing with little kids. These are the things you have to be so mindful of, when you're educating. And that's why it's like with our foundation, we partner with Belay. They're amazing. We built a training educational platform, both in person and online. And we've trained people throughout the U.S. and also online. We're building that platform because we want them to understand the severity that comes from it. We look at a lot of the infographics and everything are out there. Carry 2 EpiPens. We know that.
Right.
Especially during the Halloween times, read labels, be mindful, don't get candies that, get, this trick or trinket. But there's this, we really have to kind of like up that communication a little bit bigger to a broader community, because when we're constantly going in the same circle, talking to the same community over and over, it's great. But what about those? And that's why we push, like, you have organizations like FAIR, AAFA, Asthma and Allergy Network, all these organizations are pushing through this barrier of the communication, that we have to reach a demographic of people that don't know this. And it's not just the schools. We have to go to the restaurants, the businesses, wherever you are, and look at a different way to create that awareness. And I think the main point is to focus on the educational factors of that in the schools, working with medical professionals in the community, certain communities, with their local community centers, their clinics, and so forth, bring that information there so they can provide the resources to those communities, and especially help them find where the most affordable, where their insurance can actually cover the cost.
Right.
Because we know socioeconomical factors play a big role when it comes to that. So if your socioeconomical factors play into you not affording that right healthcare, you're not going to get that healthcare. I spoke with a woman at an event. She had 3 kids with multiple food allergies. She only told the school that one of the kids had food allergies because she couldn't afford an additional 4 more EpiPens for the other 2 kids.
Wow.
And they allowed her to keep one at the school and one at home. And I had to plead with her. I was like, this is a ticking time bomb. And I was like, and she stressed that the nurse is not always there. And it just scared me to death. And I was like, okay, this is what you need to do. You need to talk to your allergist, talk to them about, the EpiPens are expensive. Financially, if you don't make enough money, you can't cover that cost of an EpiPen. Whether your insurance, even if it's $50 or $25, if you don't make that much money,
that's a lot.
It's still a lot of money. So she was able to get additional EpiPens for each of her kids, like a set each, and pay only $6 for a total. Because she actually spoke with her doctor, they were able to get her a generic brand, which was more affordable, where her insurance can cover that. You can have affordable healthcare. That doesn't mean it's going to cover the full cost of certain medications.
Right.
So, I was happy to hear that she made that connection, and then she's, been looking into other resources that can help her with her kids and her allergies. They never heard about safe foods. It was always, they had rice. It was like rice and broccoli all the time for her kids, because you have one that had 8 allergies, another one that had 6, another one that had 10, and she didn't know what to do. So it was like, when you're in the communities, this is the type of information we have to provide to them.
Right.
We can do all the marketing via social media, via internet, do PSAs. It was like, but is it really reaching the people we want?
Yeah, I like to be hands-on
in the
community. And also I like to remind people, culturally, a lot of cultures, we connect over food.
This is true, especially West Indian culture,
is traditional,
and Black people, Black American soul food, and
I was reading a blog somewhere, and there was it was an Asian family, and they struggled because they had a child. They just happened to have the one child with food allergies. They could have cabbage or something. And, it just became a strain on the family because, now what does dinner time look like?
Right.
When we're so used to using this specific ingredient.
Right.
And then, hoping that your family understands, yes, I would love to have cabbage, but however, my kid can die. So there's no cabbage, It's the same with, I hear this war with peanuts all the time. And we know there's obviously more than peanut allergies, but when I'll hear a parent complain about wanting specific foods for their kids in school and stuff like that, and I'm like,
yep.
It's interesting. I'm like, I would hope that at some point we'll get to a place in life where we don't have to wait for it to touch our doorstep to care.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's okay if your son or daughter doesn't have that cookie or that sandwich. There are alternative ways that you can make that.
Yeah, and you're right. There's people that are just like, but I mean, why can't they have PB&J? And I'm like,
you can't be more creative than that. I'm sure your son and daughter would really love to have a different lunch on a Monday.
It's a battle when it comes, especially to the school system. That especially with peanut being one of the, although peanut is one of the most prominent ones that are talked about the most, but dairy is one of the heightened ones as well. But I hear that parents will fight against the school board because their children are not allowed to bring peanut butter and jelly sandwiches but they don't understand the underlying factor. If we bring this, someone can be severely harmed or die. There was a principal of a school, when she took over, she eliminated peanut butter from the school, not because of the arguments of that, because she has a severe allergy to peanuts
herself. Yeah. I love it.
So she was like, I had to do that because peanut butter was everywhere. And that's another thing I always focus on is like when you're with kids in school, the some of the paints and oils and things that they mess with have these food ingredients, these food additives in them, like peanut oil being one of them. Even in the paint that they use for school, they can have peanut oil in the paint, which is it's crazy to actually see that.
Or even which we learned the hard way. I did, where, and like when we talk about, let me be very honest. Like when I had my son, when I was pregnant, food allergy is not on my mind. I didn't grow up, and I would used to tell Thomas, like, I just can't eat this. And he would say to me, you need to go see the allergist. And I'm like, I'm fine. I just don't eat them, just avoid certain things. And when I was breastfeeding and my son looked like there was like an exorcism going on, because it was just like the milk was just shooting out of his mouth, like coming out of his nose, like it smelled awful. And I'm like, what in the world? And they're like, well, it's something you eating that's making his stomach sensitive. And I'm still not understanding, and only to find out they test him and they're like, oh, he can't milk, whatever you're eating. And I'm like, well, I can't have milk myself. Like now I wasn't as sensitive, I'm more intolerant, where they are more food allergic to it. So I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I had like a cake or a muffin that maybe had an ingredient in it that I would eat, because I can't drink milk. I can't have ice cream. Like I can't do those things. So I was like, oh, so I can't have cookies. I can't have cupcakes. Man, this is insane. And then when my other son was born, one couldn't have, it would be, I think, so Eli so Sebastian can have berries, but Eli couldn't have berries. Like, Sebastian at the time, he was sensitive to peaches, but Eli could eat the peaches, like it was just like, so we can have none of these things in the house, so all of the things that I like to eat, he likes to eat. It was just nope, can't have none of those things in the house. And it was just, so when I speak to people, I get it. I do. I 100% understand. Like, you start thinking of like, okay, so what am I going to cook? Like, you start to have to be a little bit more creative. And then, I have family members that would say, well, since they can't have dairy, can we just take the cheese off the pizza? No. And I think for my family, it was like, you can die from this. And it's like, yes, you can. And it was so hard.
I'm allergic to the smell of seafood cooking. Plus I can't eat it. So, especially my West Indian family, my mom's, we got Black Southerners and we got West Indians. They like to have fish fry, seafood. Right. Exactly. So, but they, my grandparents, God bless them all, may they rest all in peace. They, I'm 45, so they had to learn and they figured it out, and I'm still here and I didn't miss any family functions. And, we figured out what had to be done, as either Renee has to sit outside or we got to finish before she gets here and air out the house. You know what I mean? But like I said, I'm still here. So, thankfully, everyone understood. And I'm the only one, like, of my cousins. Wow. It's just me. Like, nobody else
too.
like
right.
And I have a sister and she's not allergic to a thing. And my parents, everything is in the house. Renee, you can't eat that. Don't touch that. You can't eat that. My mother would make 2 meals. She would make a meal for the 3 of them and a meal for Renee. And as a matter of fact, because I'm actually with my parents now, my sister's a chef and she made fish last night. So Renee ordered Chipotle. You got
to do it.
I didn't grow up with them depriving themselves of anything. Now, the funniest thing is, because I have my own place, and my place has none of my allergens in it, because why would it, right?
Okay.
So my mom comes and she brings her nuts because that's what she likes to snack on. And I'm like, are you serious? Yeah. In my house? This is my domain.
Right.
Like, this is my place. Oh, Renee. And so I'm like, fine. So then they left. And do you know, I found a shell on the floor. I said, ma'am, Ma'am, are you trying to kill me? I live alone. She's like,
Oh my God.
right. I was like, mother.
Wow.
Right. But, and she didn't do it on purpose, but,
Right, yeah.
but yeah. So, yeah, they, like I said, in my house, I don't have anything like that. But then when I go to my sister's place and my parents, it's different. But,
And with
I'm
children, it's that challenge is like birthday parties, right?
yes.
Hanging out with other children.
Yes.
This constant need to educate the parents and everybody around. And I mean, our families have done better to come along and, this, because what else are you going to do? I mean, it's just what it is.
Right.
And then don't add, and I always say, if your child has asthma and food allergies and their anaphylaxis, oh, forget it. I mean, you as a parent with a little one, you're in and out of the hospital, like at this point, because it's like the one thing is tripping up the other one, and is causing it's like this is causing two reactions to happen at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's like both are an issue of the breathing.
Yeah.
It was like me growing up. I have asthma and food allergies, and have the eosinophilic reaction because with the asthma.
Wait, I have to say this.
I was like, what happened?
I wasn't ignorant to food allergies or how. So being married to this man really opened up my understanding of the severities of food allergies. Story time. So I was out with my mom and she had a friend. We are in Brooklyn. He orders seafood. He eats the seafood in the car. Now he's touching stuff in the car. We drive from Brooklyn all the way to Harlem. Now I know that he has seafood allergies, but I don't eat seafood like that. So we've never had to have these issues with each other. It just so happens that as my mom is dropping me off back home in Harlem with her friend, he happens to be in the supermarket. And we happen to stop because my mom friend wanted to grab something to drink in the supermarket. So he goes to the supermarket. He's on his way out. He touches the handle of the car door, gets in the car. I'm sitting in there. I see Thomas. I'm like, hey, Thomas. And he's like, hey. So he comes on over, opens the door, gets in the car. Immediately, he's like,
oh my God.
So he's like, turn down the window. Remember, he has asthma too.
Right.
So I get it. Is it me? So he's trying to be, nice, I guess. But I'm looking at him in distress. I'm like, are you okay? And he's like, I'm not okay. I'm not fine.
Right. No need to lie.
We're almost there. So it's nighttime. We get inside the house and he's like, I need my pump. Like, he's like, I think I still need my pump. He has like the nebulizer thing going and all this stuff. And I'm looking at him like, oh my gosh, you're breaking out. Like he has like hives everywhere now. I think we went to the hospital at some point. Yeah, we eventually had to go. I felt so bad. And he was like, so I didn't dawn on me. I was like, he's like, what was in the car? Did you touch any? I was like, I said, now I forgot that my mom's friend had seafood.
Right.
Ben had this. This was in Brooklyn.
Right.
So when he's asking me, I'm like, that dinner been finished a long time ago.
Right.
We drove all the way to Harlem. So I didn't even realize that it was like not just like he has to put it in his mouth. Yeah. It's the contact, and then on top of that, the air. I didn't know those two things was a thing. And so then fast forward, we have our son Eli, and it's the same for him. Like, I think I was making this is how we found out he couldn't have eggs. I think I was making scrambled eggs. Mm-hmm. And Sebastian is not sensitive by air, but Eli is. And I didn't know, it brought me back to what happened with him. I was like, oh my goodness, like, wow, like, are the enzymes in the air? And he's like, yeah. And then we had to use the EpiPen on him, twice, unfortunately, which is really pretty scary. But,
this was that was the learning process with us having the boys.
Yeah, we were just like with the berries.
It was
I gave Sebastian blueberries. I thought he can have blueberries, and then he started turning blue, and I was just like, "What's going on?" And he's like, And he's like, give him the EpiPen. And I was like, what? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, okay. And we do it. And then it's like, oh my gosh, it's like the worst thing you do to the kid because it's painful.
Right. That is a serious needle.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And so I'm like, I felt so bad. And then he has asthma, like, he has asthma too. It's like the respiratory issue thing going. So we would always be in the hospital for like days with him.
That's why we became so diligent and like vigilant with Elijah and Sebastian. Like everywhere they went, from whether it was a play date, family,
right.
school.
Oh, I was hovering.
Like you would think like we were the FBI and CIA with them. It was crazy.
Which is why the foundation is what it is today, because I'm like, we did everything as parents to protect our boys. They didn't live in a bubble.
Right.
We communicated and we educated people, and they were safe. And when you send your kids to school, you're trusting that they know what to do in a crisis. And, I guess I wouldn't say, if it didn't happen to me, it happened to another parent, I would say the same thing. Like, you are trusting the people with your precious gems. And if they're telling you they have what it takes and you are communicating and you're doing your part, it really sucks that you take your kid out of a safe zone and you think you're putting them in a safe zone and you're not, and I've healed past the point of going in my head about it, but I can only imagine, like, somebody there going, we always do this. It won't happen. It's not that bad.
Right.
And this is what I try to tell people. It's like, I'm telling you, it's not a good feeling. You just, you don't want to see what could happen. You don't want to be in that situation. It's not a comfortable, when you have older children or younger kids, it doesn't matter, but your older kids, they can talk, they can ask for help. Hi, baby.
What are you doing here? What are you doing at Daddy's meeting?
Oh, well, we're supposed to be together in the meeting, but because Mommy's here, we have to. That's our other little one. It's tough, like you don't ever want to make that assumption that you're going to take that chance. And this is why our foundation, we make sure, like, these schools, I'm like, let me tell you, as an educator myself, I don't know what I would do if I had to carry something like that.
Right. I mean, as the caregivers, I feel horrible. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's not a oops.
No, that's horrible.
Not like drop, like the kid getting cut and having a Band-Aid, like,
right.
How do you even live with yourself?
Exactly. I'd feel terrible.
And that's why it's like, that's why with my wife and I outside the foundation, we're pushing for legislation in other states so we can provide this type of protection.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you guys are taking this across the country so that it won't be just New York that's safe. It'll be everywhere.
Yeah.
Correct.
I want to give you guys a little teaser. My sister and I, for the audience, we actually have been working with FAIR, Food Allergy Research Education. If you've never heard of FAIR, they are amazing, and they do a whole lot in this space. They have been they have been working with us. My sister is a trained chef. She's Chef Alicia Nicole, aka Foodie Engineer, and she was trained in New York City at I'm always gonna mess it, ICE, International Culinary Education. That's the name of the school, in the Time Warner Building. And because she was my younger sister, she obviously grew up with food allergies because of me. My sister's not allergic to anything, but because I would visit her and I need to eat, and she likes to cook. She knew how to make things so that I could eat them.
Nice.
So we have done a whole bunch of videos to give you guys foods that have a lot of the they're like, I won't say they're top, because I'm actually top 8 plus. They're not all of them, but there are a lot of them allergen free. And we tell you which ones in each video. And but we did dinner, we did breakfast, we did dessert.
Amazing.
So
Ooh, dessert.
I just want to give you guys a little teaser. And I hope you guys will follow FAIR, follow them on Facebook, like them on Facebook. Make sure you subscribe to their YouTube channel, which is FAIR, F-A-R-E, and their logo's here on the screen. But here's the video. Hi, I'm Dr. Renee. This is my lovely younger sister, Chef Alicia Nicole. You see how little she is today? I'm also allergic to chocolate. Don't let it burn.
It's much thicker.
So, thank you. So I'm going to give you what I did. I don't think I saw, but potato salad. We made potato salad with no eggs.
Yeah, that's the best. Those are the best.
And so a lot of people are like, huh? And my sister, because, you know, she's been eating these things all her life. She was like, this actually tastes like potato salad. And we made brownies that didn't have chocolate.
That's awesome.
That I gotta.
Yeah. So you guys have to tune in because they're gonna release the videos shortly, and I think they're gonna do a few at a time or whatever. But make sure you follow FAIR. You make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that great stuff, so that you'll know when these videos come out. And of course, if you follow me at Ask Dr. Renee, I will post and let you know when to watch the videos as well. But we're really excited because I know that, just like you said, you got to get creative, but people can still have. The other thing is, I like to eat good food that tastes good.
Yes.
This food has flavor and tastes good.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, like I had French toast. I never knew French toast had eggs because I never had it with eggs. Yeah. It is just a miracle that I never ordered it at a restaurant, but I didn't know French toast was dipped in egg until I might have been in my 20s or 30s. Because my dad never made it that way because I was allergic.
Yeah.
So, and even my sister, she ate it the same way I did. So I don't know if she even knew. So we made French toast in one of the videos because I like breakfast. We made pancakes.
I was like, ooh.
Yes, we made pancakes too. So yeah, I'm really excited for you guys to see these videos. And I mentioned in the videos, if you have foods that you want to figure out a substitute for, you should drop that in the comments and let us know, because then maybe we can figure out, or maybe we already have a solution, because I just recently lost a whole lot of weight, but I was a really much bigger girl. That's because I ate. I know how to eat. I know how to eat.
That's another thing. I think there's people have a myth of, people with food allergies, we don't like eating food. It's like you said, no, they do. We do, and children are going to eat food. So it's really important.
They're not going to starve.
No, it's important that you provide the alternatives. Like, I know for me, still a biggest thing that a hurdle that I need to get over is the birthday party situations. Like, it still gives me anxiety and stresses me out.
But you know what? I'm going to tell you what my mom did. And I talked about it in the book. My mom, she would make me like a cupcake. And that's what I would take with me. Also, I couldn't have ice cream either. I can now, thank you, Lord. But I couldn't then. And when I'm 45, like I said. So back when I was younger, they had single serve goat's milk. They didn't have all these varieties now. They got oat milk, they got coconut milk, they got all these different. Oh, we made ice cream too, me and my sister. But in the videos. But they had goat's milk was single serve. So she gave me my cupcake and my ice cream. And she's like, here you go. And that's what I took with me. And then, back when I was a child, you could actually celebrate birthdays in the school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this is what I did at school too. So that because I, like I said, I can't have chocolate. So I couldn't have a chocolate bar or whatever, chocolate icing cupcake they had. So my mom made mine and I took mine and I took my little ice cream and that was my little treat. So
yeah, that's exactly the way to do it. Like, I've learned to cook so many different ways because of my son. Because
Right.
like I
Yeah, with the whole like no
love-
milk, no eggs.
Yeah.
He bakes. I don't bake.
Yeah,
I'm not the
my
mom that
sister
bakes.
is the chef and I'm a baker.
Yeah, I don't. But that's like I don't. I cook.
she's-
I don't bake. So I feel I want to learn to make, like desserts for my son. But
Well,
he'll tell you real
watch
quick,
our
like,
videos.
Mommy,
Yeah.
your cookies are not good. And I'm like, I know, I'm working on it.
Right.
I'm
But you
working
know,
on
the
it.
other thing is, and I know you guys are doing it, is your child can advocate for himself.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Oh,
And
he's
so
good.
that is right. And that is another big thing that I was seeing, which is another reason why I wrote the book, is because I wanted parents to understand you need to talk to the children and they need to understand what'll happen.
Yeah.
What is, if something happens, let them know so they know, oh, like my thing was my throat would itch. I'm like, Mommy, my tongue is itching, my throat is itching. And then I knew, and they knew, something she had, she shouldn't have had.
Yeah.
So it's really big that you make sure that they can advocate for themselves, because I will tell you, and I talked about it before, it's in the book. My sister and I would travel with our dance group. I danced competitively. I would travel with them without my parents. And I was like 12, 11, 13. But I knew, and my sister knew. And even if the adults didn't remember, because the both of us knew, I never had any problems.
That's good.
Right.
And at the same time, I had to carry my nebulizer too, because at that time I was still taking treatments every day. So you can imagine food allergies, and she's carrying this medication that she has to take.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So
that's why, I love, to everything you're saying, we're at a very interesting place now in the world where we can start communicating to parents early
yeah,
in our community, providing language, resource, tools, and support for this I will say illness, or that is continuing to grow. Like,
right.
Maybe they had little bits here, maybe little bits there. But when I think about it, I feel like everyone was somewhat experiencing it. It's just the way that we communicated about it was differently. Like I said, I think about my childhood and I'm like, oh, I've had allergies my entire life. I remember I was a kid and I broke out all over my body, like all over my body. And I would always have these random reactions to things. And it was just, okay, let's avoid this. Let's avoid that. Let's not eat this. Let's not eat that. So I was talking to my brothers and sisters once, and I was just like, I wonder if this is why we didn't really go to restaurants and stuff. Like, it must have been because, we all were so they call sensitive.
Yeah.
So just don't, because you don't know what's in the food when you go there, right? As opposed to when you're cooking the meals, you know what's in them. Jamaicans usually use the same ingredients for certain foods,
Right.
And I think about, like, man, imagine if I was allergic to fish. I don't know what they would have did, like, because
Right.
that was the staple,
Yeah.
So I get it. Like, now that
my grandmother lived in New York, and my uncle lives in New York, and my aunt and uncle, my aunt was she was a medical professional, and she understood my allergies. And so there was not a whole lot of places that I felt comfortable where I would just eat food. But West Indian households, they put the food down. You must
have to eat it.
Yep.
Like, you don't have a choice. And so I knew this. And I didn't want to insult them by saying, what's this? But my aunt, may she rest in peace, she was amazing. I knew she knew what I was allergic to. So I knew when she served whatever she served me, I knew I'd be okay. And that's how I was introduced to oxtails, because I didn't ask any questions. I just ate, and it was so good. I was like, Auntie, what is this? This is so good. And so then I told my mom, like I said, my mom is actually from Detroit. My dad's from Antigua. And so I told my mom, I'm like, Mom, and my mom's a gourmet cook herself. So I was like, Mom, you have to find out what those are and how to make those, because that was so good. But it was at her house that I learned of a lot of West Indian dishes, because I knew that she knew without a shadow of a doubt what would happen to me if I had something I was allergic to, and she would make sure that I was okay. So whatever she gave me, I knew I'd be okay. And so I think that's where I had curry chicken for the first time. Like all these things I had at her house. And it was like, I go, oh my God, what is this? This is so good. But I knew that she would, take care of me. And so that's important. If if you can find a family member that, especially like I said, in our household, you can't just not eat. You have to eat the food. So you need to make sure that you can trust the person that is feeding your children.
Absolutely.
But where can people find out more about Elijah? Please tell me. I want to pronounce it right. What is it? Elijah what?
Elijah Alavi Foundation.
Alavi. Elijah Alavi Foundation. I want everyone to please follow you and support you guys because you guys are really doing amazing work. So please let us know where we can find you guys and continue to support, how we can support.
Yes.
So you can find the Elijah Alavi Foundation. Go to ElijahAlaviFoundation.org. And you can reach us on Instagram at Elijah's Echo, on Twitter at Elijah's Echo, on Facebook at the Elijah Alavi Foundation. You can find us on those platforms. We provide bevy of resources. We respond rapidly when someone has questions. And if we don't know the answer, we send them to someone that actually will help them with that. We do a lot in the community to create the awareness, and we want to create lasting and impactful change for especially young children, and create that empowerment and their encouragement where they can be their voice and be an advocate for themselves as they get older. And those are all the platforms that they can find on.
Yes, and you could support us by not just donations, but also sharing the content that we do post. Like Dr. Renee says, you may not have allergies, but you might be surprised that there's somebody in your circle or somebody in your circle that may need this information. And also, today you might need it and tomorrow you might. And so we ask that you share the information with other people, and, stay engaged, ask questions, and, let us know, if there's any one in your community that may need more resources or information. I know a lot of the times you don't see a lot of us in this space. We are here. We're not going anywhere. We keep abreast to all of the innovative things that are changing, all the information that's coming, and we want to make sure that our community has this information too, because we too are affected by food allergies and asthma. And I know that a lot of the times when we go to our healthcare providers, the clinics, the hospitals, there's not a lot of us that you're engaging with. And so I do know that there is maybe some level of distrust when it comes to people like us and our faces in this space, the credibility factor of like, well, can I trust you? Do you have information? What do you know? Is this real? And I can say yes, 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 and yes to all of those things. We are doing our best to change that narrative and that thinking in our community where you can trust our faces, and we are credible enough to provide you with information that not only will provide you with the supports that you need, but will keep your family safe.
7 o'clock.
So follow us.
Yes. Please
Share.
follow them. Share. Like I said, somebody, and if you don't know somebody, somebody else knows somebody. So please share. Yeah. And we will see you guys again next week. I'll be back with another week of Allergy Appreciation Month. Yes. The last week, actually. And next week, I think I have another big surprise, but we shall see. But thank you so much. And actually, next week, I think I'm going to give away some books. So make sure you guys tune in. And thank you so much, everyone.